Good morning, everyone, and thanks again for taking the time to hear me out and ponder what I have to say. I've been meaning to present my thoughts on this topic for quite a few days now, but the delay seemed to be a good thing because now I have a few other ideas I'd like to incorporate. I have been watching as our country spirals into the proverbial rabbit hole, and among the key issues is this non existent border that has allowed millions of undocumented, unvetted persons and individuals whom we know less than nothing about to enter our nation and enter uncharted territory here. Now, I don't want to paint everyone again with the same broad brushstroke. But many of these individuals have fled their nations, not as refugees. I have nothing against people seeking refuge from devastation. But I do have a problem with people with rap sheets miles and miles long who are seeking to flee their own nations and bring the devastation they caused there, here to our neighborhoods, our communities, and our own backyards. And they do so with no filter because we have no border. But what has become more troubling in the last few days, 3 or 4 to be exact, is that many of these individuals are not only smuggling in other individuals and drugs, but now there is the plausible possibility and potential that many of these individuals are among those who were responsible for the devastating and tragic events that recently occurred in Israel. Many of those may be affiliated with terrorist organizations, may even be terrorists themselves, and we have no idea. And yet we are allowing everyone and anyone in, while the leaders that be say they're trying to figure out a solution to the crisis. Well, it's actually a 5-minute solution that doesn't require necessarily any money or even a border wall per se, though it should involve some military protection and surveillance, for lack of a better term. But before I tell you about that solution, let me convey to you a little story, a personal story, if you will. It happened over 20 years ago when a childhood friend of mine from New York got married, and she and her husband decided to pack up and head down south, down to the deep south as far as I was concerned, to a quaint little town just outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee, a town called Jonesboro that back then frowned upon any female, especially wearing shorts on Sunday, the Lord's Day, and most men carried gun racks on the back of their trucks. Well, upon finding out that my friend and her husband were expecting their first child, I decided to pack up and pay them a visit, replete with gifts, smiles, and bells on. But being the artsy-fartsy girl from New York, I decided to take my friend and sojourn into what is the Soho of the South, Asheville, North Carolina. But we had no GPSs back then. What we had was maps and atlases. And so, as luck would have it, traveling down some very rural back roads, the two ladies got lost and decided to do what any normal lost individual would do in that situation. We decided to ask for directions. Little did we know that we weren't in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. When we stopped for directions, the two people sitting on their quaint country home porch cocked their rifles and aimed them at us, or at least had us believe they were aiming them at us. And since I'm still here telling the story, it's safe to say that they did not shoot us. But they were prepared to, I suppose. Still, we got our directions and went on. What does that have to do with anything? Well, it has everything to do with everything currently going on. These two people were not protected by armed artillery or military forces or a border wall. They had a brown picket fence with a sign that says trespassers will be shot. And they were ready, willing, and able to follow through on their threat. So, As a nation, we need to save the taxpayers' money, and we need to stop the rhetoric. All we need at the border, in my opinion, is a sign. Trespassers will be shot. And then we need to be ready, willing and able, like those two people on the porch, to follow suit when people break our laws, rules, and protocols and decide to enter at their own risk.